China wanted to warn the U.S. about coronavirus in December 2019, in January 2020, but Pompeo blocked those messages, so Trump was led to believe that China was hiding this information.
Hello, 大家好，欢迎回到外媒看中国，我是安博然。James O'Keefe, formerly of Project Veritas fame, has released a video today, shot undercover by a citizen journalist, which has a CIA contractor from the China Mission Center admitting that the CIA and other agencies withheld information from then-President Donald Trump. The man, Amjad Fseisi, admitted on camera that former CEO directors Gina, Haspel and Mike Pompeo were in on this potentially illegal withholding of information from a sitting president, which, according to China Trends host Tom Pauken II, has serious ramifications that need to be discussed urgently. Mainly, did Pompeo intentionally withhold information China provided about the COVID outbreak way back in January 2020? Today, Tom is on the show. This is Reports on China. I'm Andy Boreham in Shanghai. Let's get reporting. James O'Keefe, who previously headed a citizen journalist group called Project Veritas, has today released a series of secretly recorded conversations between one of their members and a man called Amjad Fseisi, who up until now worked for Deloitte as a contractor to the CIA as a program manager for their cyber operations in the China Mission Center. Now, the China Mission Center is basically set up by the CIA to gather intelligence on China, or in plain English, to spy. In the video, Amjad, who says he's been contracted to the CIA for more than 10 years, claims that the CIA, its former directors, and other intel agencies purposefully withheld information from then-President Donald Trump. Let's watch some of the video, and when we come back, we'll chat with China Trends host Tom Pauken II about why this is so significant to China-US relations.
So the agencies kind of like all got together and said, we're not going to tell Trump.
The higher-ups.
The higher-ups.
We put it this way, the executive staff, we're talking about the director and his subordinates.
Like what titles are they? They're
Director of the CIA.
Director of the CIA would keep.
Yes.
What's CMC?
China Mission Center, darling.
Oh.
You want to do. Okay, I'm getting a little nervous now.
Okay. This is okay. Oh, so this is the agent, your division.
That's my mission center.
Gotcha.
But do you believe me now?
Yes, this is very legit. I like it.
Okay, to help us unpack some of the allegations made in that video, we're joined by a friend of the show, Tom Pauken II. Tom, you're pretty adamant that the allegations made in the video have serious ramifications for Sino-US relations. Can you help us explain why?
Sure, I'd love to. And thank you for inviting me on your wonderful show. What I first want to emphasize is that perhaps some people may not understand its real significance. And I'm a guy who follows geopolitics very closely, and this is a blockbuster of Watergate proportions. And here's why. Because a U.S. president is making decisions on wars, on major national security issues, on things that really impact not only U.S. citizens' lives, but the entire world. So a lot of times before he makes a decision, the intelligence people will gather in the Oval Office to have an important discussion. And the president will ask, what is exactly happening? Don't tell me what the media is saying. Don't tell me what other people are saying. I want the truth. I need to know all the information before I make a decision. So in come these guys. They're supposed to tell about China, who are here's this guy on video who has a major role in a China Mission Center, and his job is to provide accurate and correct information about China. So suddenly COVID happens. And then Trump is concerned about COVID. He's asking around. And when you withhold accurate and correct information, it could be perceived that China did something intentionally, and this could be something that could cause World War III.
So if he did withhold information, if the CIA did withhold information early on about COVID, what would be the ramifications of that?
Well, look at it. You had Trump giving a speech. He did a travel ban on China. He was giving speeches all over the country, and even at a State of the Union. He said, China didn't tell me. China didn't warn me. How dare they? They were hiding this COVID information. They were doing this because they want to do a bio war on the USA. Of course, if he had understood that as a situation, that could have been a declaration of war if this was true. And he was basically, because the information was held, he was told to understand that this was the case. So it's understandable that Trump was upset because he was delivered false information intentionally with willful intent by Pompeo and Gina Haspel. And to be honest, I was so angry. That's why I had to beg you to talk to you, because I was so upset. This is a serious issue.
So if they had provided clear information to Donald Trump, how different do you think the landscape between, with Sino-US relations could look today?
Oh, it was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking because I lived through those times. I was also doing consulting. I was asked by some people to help try to improve communication and deliver accurate information. It was heartbreaking. I couldn't do anything. It was so sad because if Trump had known the correct information and he had suggested that he wanted to cooperate with Chinese President Xi Jinping to overcome the pandemic, to overcome the coronavirus, but then suddenly he is not told all the information. And so he is led to believe by Pompeo and his people that China did this with willful intent and that China is lying to Trump if he has a phone call with Xi Jinping, because they didn't give him the accurate information that he expected to receive, because by law, they are supposed to tell him the truth.
Yeah, you mentioned that it's illegal to withhold said information, but surely they can't tell the president every single minute detail. So do you think this really crosses into illegality?
No, that's a fair question. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's how these people are going to respond. Well, how can you expect us to tell every detail? Well, you're supposed to tell every important detail. If you are insinuating that China is not warning Trump about the coronavirus and knowing that Trump will react in a very angry and irate manner that could spark a war, you are obligated to provide the correct content and information. It's like being a good reporter. You're not going to, of course, you can't tell everything. You have your word count, you have their minutes count on whatever it may be, but you have to tell the important information. China wanted to warn the US about coronavirus in December 2019, in January 2020, but Pompeo blocked those messages. So Trump was led to believe that China was hiding this information. And by making it look like China was hiding the information, it caused Trump to be very upset at China, and it nearly destroyed bilateral relations between both countries.
Yeah, it does sound very serious. But the man in the video, he was a contractor with the CIA and he worked for Deloitte. So
Correct.
Can we really take what he says as gospel?
Well, he was showing off his badge. He was showing off his ability to pass so-called security protocols. And he even explained in detail with its technical language how one becomes a CIA agent and pass their security clearances. He gave the specific names. I'm sorry, my memory is not so great, but he was saying certain letters. We can review those videos where he says, and specifically what he did to overcome security clearances, that he had access to these documents. And even though he was a subcontractor, and what's also interesting, and I'm not sure if you saw this, but James O'Keefe did a follow-up. He contacted the CIA. He wanted to confirm if they will validate that he was working there. They used the language that he is no longer employed right now. Okay. But they didn't say he was never employed. They just said he is no longer. O'Keefe did ask, when was he no longer employed? Was it 48 hours ago? Was it recently? Or was it a while back ago? The CIA did not want to talk about the timing of his termination. So I believe that's important to address, because obviously certain people who are implicated are going to find ways to come up with excuses. But the fact is even the CIA said this guy was with us.
And speaking of Deloitte, they have a massive presence here in China. Can you tell our viewers briefly what it is that they do, what they do here?
Sure, I
and
understand.
What these allegations could mean? Should China be concerned?
I believe they should be very concerned. And I think they have been concerned for the past few years. If you look at some of the articles, you do a simple Google search on Deloitte China offices, you're going to see quite a few fines that the Chinese government has done on Deloitte in the recent years. Their Beijing offices were temporarily suspended in March 2023. I just confirmed that about 10, 15 minutes ago. So the Chinese government obviously has been very suspicious of Deloitte. Perhaps they even thought that they had some connections to the China Mission Center, and so they had monitored them more closely than they may do other auditing firms. But this video basically spells it out. I work for Deloitte. I work for CIA. Because also you got to remember, and I've had this discussion with certain people. I don't want to say who, but I'll just say they explain things about CIA. When you're a CIA agent, you're never going out and say, I'm CIA. This guy did it. What a fool. But even if somebody becomes suspicious, you say, oh, I'm working as I'm an accountant. I work for an accounting firm, or I work as some kind of consultant. But they always want to put you on a name. But because if somebody wants to check you out, they're going to go to that company and they're going to ask, is this guy really employed there?
And Deloitte is quite embedded in China, you could say. I think they have around 20,000 employees here. So this revelation that they're working closely with the CIA, what is that going to mean for Deloitte China?
Just think about it. That's serious allegation. To be honest, I think that's one of the reasons why the Western media won't talk about this video too much in the next few days. Deloitte is big. It's like when you think about the establishment, the Wall Street establishment, which is the investment banking firms, the accounting firms, Deloitte is like on the top 10 of the list. They are big. And basically this guy says, I work for Deloitte. I work for the China Mission Center. I was their program manager. Now, I will say, we have to say that he obviously wasn't Mr. really super huge, but Deloitte, this is just not a good look. It's a bad look. And if I was, with Deloitte right now, I would be a little bit nervous.
We'll definitely be following this story really closely. Tom, thank you so much for coming on to explain today. And on that note, that will be it for today, you guys. But as always, I would love to know your thoughts. Do you believe that Mike Pompeo held important information on China from President Trump? Do you think Deloitte working closely with the CIA is a problem for China? Let me know down below. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. It really does help the channel. I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.